Cool. Welcome to the Node API August 8th of 2025. And I'm going to share my screen. So it should be the Node API project report. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. Let's see if we have anything new in the down list. I don't see
I see
anything.
we closed the function reference issue on debug build due to the not
Yeah,
escape handles. Yeah, I validated that fix last week, so that's why we closed it. And thank you for working on that.
yeah, sure. Thank you for taking a look on that. I think that was a very long
Mhm.
issue. Um, yeah, cool. Great. And that's something new here. Uh, anything in the progress list or in progress list that people let bring up first?
Nope.
And then we can jump to the, we can probably jump to the ABS stability first. I think it's pretty close to being landed. And to adjust the command that Kevin put on the first 16 array here. I it's about if we need to add a version guard or any uh, macro guard on the new definition on the new value of a or an enum. Um, I updated the pull request to include the in which condition that we need to add a version guard, and I decided to defer the macro definition to be a separate issue because I don't think it's blocking this ABI stability definition of the enum. So we can do it for all enums together in a separate discussion. And in particular, the change for this thread is that I added that it's only needed to add the version guard for a enum type being used only in the as an in parameter because people can use this version guard to determine in which version they can start passing the enum new enum value to a node API function. And for a enum type that's being used in out parameter, in particular like NPI states and NPI value type, it's important that people can um, be can be able to reference to the NPI value instantly because values like NPI status or NPI version type can be returned on existing NPI functions based on the node.js version instead of the Node API version. So that's also the case like for the API external buffer is not being supported on like Electron. So I think this is describing the de facto status of the convention that we have for the out parameter enum types. And for the floor sitting array particular case, I think it's being a special case because it's the only enum that's being used as both in parameter and out parameter. And I just looked at every enum type we have in Node API, and the flow system, the API tapped array type is the only enum that's being used both as in parameter and out parameter. So I think for this particular case, I think it's more important for people to be able to use the new enum value as if it's like a auto parameter because people can use it in NPI get tabular info, and it it'll be a it'll be a unfortunate situation that people uh, cannot reference to the new MPI tabular type like MPI float sitting array, but they can get a value from the API get a tabular info as a return value. So I think it's more important to um, be able to 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 get the API float sitting array definition in such condition without the version guard. So I added this statement here that for enum types that can be used in both in parameter and parameters, they can be introduced without a version guard.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that we suggested previously that we should also mention that a new enum value should not be a new enum value should be added to the end of the list of the enum definition, and we cannot remove any existing or legacy values or rename them. So I think it's also worth mentioning here that the enum value, once being added, will not be changed anymore.
Right. And then we discussed that because, so say in like node 20, where the actual support of float 16 does not exist,
Yeah,
but the the symbol would be defined because
yeah,
that's not by a version guard. So in order for the add-on to know that it is not available, they would have to programmatically check, for example, on the global object if float
yeah,
16 array is defined. Okay.
yeah. Or they can try to create a flow sitting array and they will get a
You get a failure.
supported. Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's a very fairly cheap check because creating an object is just as simple because I think that we can show like it's a shortcut for add-on to call npm create tabular array with flow 16 and it will immediately return npm not supported if
Right.
it it's not supported. So there's no side effect.
Right. And that would be like the case that you are wanting to do, which would be I want to create a float 16 array,
Yeah,
which would, however long it takes to actually create, would be how long it takes. And then if it fails because it's not supported, that would almost be instantaneous. And then you would react on the not supported value return. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah. And I think it also applies to other runtime that have not yet implemented for a system array or other ECMA building features.
Right, right. So, and these runtimes, it would range from the enum not being defined because they haven't done that yet, or the create typed array would return not supported. So I guess there's a range of support that they could have for this change, and it all really depends on how far they get. And I think that that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, I think all of that makes sense. I also read this earlier today, and everything that I've just said in the meeting here has been sort of reaffirmed. So I think I'm okay with approving this. Is there anything that we need to get clarification on, or is there a possibility that we want other engine maintainers to chime in or anything? Or do we think that this is, good to go in the current state?
I think this has been open for a couple of weeks, and it should be able to land once we can get another confirmation approval because I added new statements after you approved it. So yeah, it'll be good if you can take a look at this again and approve it, and then I will be able to land soon, and we will be able to unblock this Float 16 report request.
All right, I have approved.
Cool, thank you.
I have a question. Like today, by accident, I found like we have another kind of page in node.js documentation which talks about API stability.
Yeah.
Um, it's let me
Would you mind sharing a link?
just I just sent in a chat
This one,
link.
right?
Yes. So like, should we kind of because technically feels like you adding right now with stuff inside of this NAPI documentation, then uh, we have another guide like how to add new Node API extensions, and we now have this page. I was not aware about this one.
I
I
think this is dedicated for beginners to learn about the Node API.
I also think that this sort of got um, overlooked because it still refers to Node API in the old way of N hyphen API, which is what
Yeah.
we did that rename like 2 years or so ago. So it may be that we haven't really even touched that.
I think it might be listed in this repository, right? So here
Hmm?
Oh,
is
it's
the
in repo
source.
together. I
Yeah.
see.
We can probably submit a pull request here to update all the updated references.
I kind of like this new guide, like I mean, new extensions for enum. So just my question, like, can we consolidate all these interesting kind of things about evolving about Node API in single place? So I kind of have this feeling that we have like
Um,
it's okay to merge PR as is, but maybe kind of another step as a refactoring, maybe um, see
I
like
would personally find this document to be a introductory article to the beginner to learn about Node API, and this NAPI.md is the full reference for the Node API. Like it lists every aspect of the documentation of the Node API. Like this does not list the details of Node API. So that's how I distinguish between them.
but we also have third document we have about contributors, how to contribute new Node API methods and stuff like
Yeah,
this. So
I mean they are targeting different audiences, right? Like this one is for no the sorry
I guess the point I'm trying to make, like, if people look in this contributor guide, they may miss
yeah.
this kind of requirements for enums. That's what. Uh,
Mhm.
Well, I I would doubt that because for every contributors, I would assume that they should be able to read this full
Yeah,
document because that's how they need to contribute to the Node implementation. Otherwise, how do they know the the motivation behind each Node API functions?
I get that. I get that.
right. But I think it's always still worth to augment this contributor guide to kind of point to so people kind of will see like additional kind of requirements for Node API stable APIs as a part of this documentation. Because
Yeah,
if you look at our contributor guide, we say nothing about like look at this document.
Well, maybe. I think that's kind of, yeah, I think we can add that reference in the adding a new API document by MD. But I think it can be in a separate progress because
Yes, yes.
we can link to this section directory that um, expanding on the implications of API stability.
So are we thinking that in this section of implications of ABI stability, we will want to have a link to that previous tab that you've opened, the ABI stability, or do
No, I
we?
think I should be the other way around. I think like ABI stability being introductory kind of text should reference to this documentation, and also our contributor guide also must have a reference there. Uh, so in this case, they will both look like kind of overview from different perspective, whereas this Node API documentation will be kind of the main
So
documentation.
then this guide, as well as the ABI stability guide, will link to the Node API docs.
Right, is what I would
Okay.
propose. If
Yeah,
we
I
want
think
to keep most bulk of information about Node API stability in this document, I think it would make sense.
yeah, that sounds good.
But it's not doesn't have to be part of this PR. We can do it like follow-ups
Right.
and sorry, I have a question. I probably missed it a bit. So about this macros which say like, okay, we have this some special enum value defined. So technically, I guess we don't want to have this macros, right? Like this one.
Right. So you don't like this, Michael?
I don't know,
I think that's fine. That's why I would like to left it over to another separate discussion because I don't want
right.
this to block this stability
Yeah,
clarification. Yeah, but as an idea, I have two ideas. Like one, we can say Node API has some enum value, and another idea is that we can just define the a macro for each enum value to be the exact value of this enum value, so that people can just use it macro directly.
it's what I don't like technically. Like
Ah, okay.
we define one macro for each enum, man, it will be so ugly.
All right. Well,
Uh,
that's a fair point.
let's discuss it in future, but as a part of this document, I like that you omitted it, and maybe I don't know, Kevin, do you feel strong about these macros?
How do I feel about these macros? Um, I think it would be I think it would be nice at compile time to know if you have support in the engine to use it. But
We
what we discussed is that we're not going to know it at compile time because you have to check on the global object or just try to create it and get an error. But I mean, you could maybe do that at module initialization, at add-on initialization, and then you just store it as information in your add-on so that you know that you don't have that support. I suppose that's fine. And for the definition of the symbol, I think in that scenario, in your package JSON, you would just have to say what engine you support so that it can be compiled, right? So this basically would, because since we won't have a way to check that the property is defined or not. There would be no way to say, oh, if this symbol is defined, use it, otherwise do something else. Since we wouldn't have that support, the only thing that I could see someone doing that wants to use that symbol is put in their package JSON to say what engine is supported. And I think that is also fine. I also kind of feel like I'm rambling a little bit. So going back to the main question of do we need to have all of those node API has XXX? Well, according to what we have in this merge request, this pull request, is that the in parameters would be guarded. And the only way to have those in parameters guarded would be to have that macro definition.
Okay.
But I think that it would be something that we do defer to a different conversation or a separate thread.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it's okay to have this for new features. I just don't like us to kind of go kind of blindly for all these enum values we have, and
Right.
for each even existing enum value, start to add this
Right.
macro. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't see how people going to use them. And plus, it's C++ only approach is what I'm concerned with. If you talk about like different language bindings, like for example, somebody using Rust against Node API, all these macros will be technically kind of useless, right?
Well,
So,
but for us, they already need to export the whole enum definition to Rust because enum values are not encoded in the binary, right?
right.
Unfortunately, I do have to run, guys.
Okay. Yeah,
Anything that we need for this merge request? I mean, I think everything of this documentation does make sense.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, but then I will catch you guys online and see you next week.
All right.
Have
See
a
you
good
next week.
weekend. See you next week.
Bye.
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 Cool. Then, I think, yeah, it should be good if we can have another look on this latest document, and we can then, once we have reviews on it again, and
Yeah, let me skip through this document today.
cool. Yeah.
It should take long.
Yeah.
But I think
Thank
it's
you.
overall, I like the shape it going into and actually. I know that I was kind of have different opinion originally about many topics, but yeah, I think it's thinking about all this stuff, it makes sense.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. Great. Anything else? We were wrapping up
I
first.
submitted just a few minutes ago new PR, like it's it's in the bottom, like this one.
This
This
one?
will like we have this Node API implementation for Hermes, and we also there is a group of community developers who work on supporting Node API for React Native. So I augmented a bit our links if you like. So just have a look. It's what we discussed
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. And,
Yeah. It looks good. I just have a question. So do we want to merge this right now, or do we want to wait until this pull request to be merged into the
yeah,
Hermes?
technically this description has like it's just mentioned this pull request, but if you look on the files changes, it does not mention Hermes. So technically, I only mentioned that like we do have.
Yeah.
I was not sure where to put this JSI implementation on top of Node API. So technically, because it's kind of C++, but technically it's
Yeah.
another kind of binding, if you will, on top of Node API. And I also said like we do have right now Node API inside of Hermes Windows. It's so there for last say like probably 3-4 years already. It technically just upstream repo like Facebook Hermes repo. It doesn't there, and also put this link to call stack companies incubator GitHub with this work in progress supporting Node API inside of React Native is.
Yeah.
So even I mentioned
Oops.
description, it's not there in PR. That's what
So the progress should be ready to learn, right?
I believe so, yes.
Cool.
But please have a look. And
Yeah, I already approved it and I think it's
oh,
good.
nice.
Yeah,
Shit.
great. Let's land it.
Nice.
Thank you for submitting
Thank
the
you.
change.
It's all for me. I didn't have I'm kind of trying to finish up with Node API implementation for Hermes. It's exactly what this draft of PR I mentioned in the pull request that I want to finish.
Yeah, that's great. Before we closing on, I would like to mention this progress as it's another addition to the new Node functions. I think the progress should be close to be able to land, and there might be some minor issues, but I think they are fine given that the new API is going to be experimental, and most suggestions have been addressed. So let's take a look. And yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let me have a look, another look at this stuff. It was pretty good shape before, but I just didn't look yet.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything else we would like to bring up? I don't see anything new.
What's this supporting Silk Road references that can be garbage collected? Sorry, I'm just curious.
I think that's a short back about the current reference counting technique in Node API. But I don't think we can do much unless we introduce BBGC to Node API, which I think is more harder effort because reference counting does not support circular references well, and um, we don't support like GC in Node API. So I can only see that it's also an issue in Node.js core, and we address the issue by introducing CPPGC. So I don't see how it's going to be feasible in the short term to be implemented in Node API.
I think that's in the short term, we probably don't want to introduce garbage collector, but it will be interesting to expand notion of our references, so they will be kind of more resemble like with like shared PTR in C++. It means like we'll have like weak PTRs and shared PTRs, like and also be kind of atomic. I would be interested to explore this thing because in this case, like people want to avoid these circle references, but normally in the world of ref counting, to avoid circle reference, you want to introduce some reference to be weak. So in this case,
Yeah.
you can break this loop, right? It's potentially something what, in my opinion, is more doable than to have the whole garbage collector.
Well, so it sounds like it could be an addition in Node add-on API space, right? Like adding a C++ smart pointer in the Node
No,
add-on
that's
API.
maybe extending a bit our Node API to have a little bit new references with new semantic. What's up currently? Because you think like most of our functions is a concern about Node API values, right? But references they have like very weird semantic mapping. If we would have semantic which like resembles closer to what we have in But probably we can do it even on, you're right, maybe we can do it inside of,
But I'm not sure if this addresses the circular references issue. We have similar implementation in the core, but I don't think it's suitable for circular references. Because they are also based on reference counting.
oh, this is what you're referring to, this base object BTR. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm referring to, yes.
Yeah. Because they are also based on reference counting, so they are also vulnerable to circular references.
Yes, but you have to be very careful, like to at least if we have some very well defined weak references, then we can potentially avoid to kind of have them in some cases.
Yeah.
I understand this garbage collector would be nice. The only question, like how to implement this garbage collector based one on engines which don't support it, like which not V8 engine.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree. So like,
Okay,
just as far as I
I'll
can
have a
tell,
look.
they are reference counting. Well, yeah, sure. Well, I don't anything else to discuss about this one?
No.
Okay. Then I think we can close out early.
Okay.
Well, have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week in GitHub. Thank you for joining. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.